Imagine having a massive Roblox game, but then it completely dies and becomes forgotten. Well, today we're going to be looking at 5 more Roblox games that died. Let's start with Feed Your Pets, a Roblox game that has over 18 million visits but only averages a few people every day, a lot of times even having 0 players. How did we get to this point? Well, it all starts with the owner, Blue Tree Frog, who started developing on Roblox 16 years ago in 2008. Blue Tree Frog was constantly working on projects, whether that be their own games or working for other developers, and they launched a bunch of projects. However, it wasn't working. For years, they constantly launched game after game, and none of them took off. One did well, but they weren't able to get this level of success again. And after launching a bunch of games, it seemed like the years of efforts were all for nothing, and their time as a developer was coming to an end. But they weren't ready to give up just yet. And 8 years later from when they joined in late 2016, everything would change. They launched Mount of Gods, a survival game in which people work together to survive attacks from gods. And the game took off, now sitting at over 50.5 million visits. This game also died off though, averaging only 50 players a day, but we'll get into that later. Finally, after years, Blue Tree Frog had a viral game, but this only marked the start, and from this point on, everything would change. They launched Farm a few months later, a farm simulator game, and that also took off, getting over 4 million visits. They went from their game struggling to now a lot of them getting millions of visits. And next up was Feed Your Pets. They launched this game in early 2018, and it was also successful. It seems like they used all their knowledge up to this point and applied it to this game, so it also found success and formed a passionate community. Feed Your Pets is an adventure and farming game where players explore a map, discover new pets and items, work on their farm, upgrade their pets, and more. For the next year, this game along with everything else would just keep growing. And after being on the platform for now over 10 years, Blue Tree Frog had done it. Several successful games, tons of fans, but a year later they had a tough decision to make. And one day everything would change forever. Just after almost a year, the game was successful. It had tens of millions of visits, but the devs still wanted more. They all had bigger plans for other games, but they also had to constantly work on this game to satisfy the audience, which was holding them back. So they had a decision to make. Keep working on this game and try to balance everything, or completely stop production and move on to new things. As you can probably guess, they chose the second option. On January 9th, 2019, they made a post in the Discord announcing the devs are moving on to other projects and jobs, and this game is no longer a high priority for them, so there will be no big updates for the foreseeable future. Fans thought maybe there's a chance they come back, but over 1 year later, they did something crazy that would confirm the end of the game. They made the game open source and uncopy locked, meaning that now anyone can download and take the game and do whatever they want with it, which also confirmed the complete end to this game, which is why it died out. They just moved on. This reason for the dev wanting to move on could also be why Mount of Gods, the game that got 50 million visits, died out too. The game does still update here and there, but it doesn't seem like their main project, and another developer seems to be more involved. So 2 viral games that they seemingly moved on from, causing them to die out. What are they up to now? Well, they're working for Full Flower Studio, who's behind the popular game Monkey Raft with over 50 million visits. And they co-made the viral game Super Doomspire with over 200 million visits, which was launched in late 2019. And 2019 is when they stopped production on Feed Your Pets. So they had bigger plans and they worked out, but they had to take a risk and abandon their popular games with tens of millions of visits causing them to die out. But it all seemed worth it in the end. If you thought that was crazy though, we're only getting crazier as the video goes on. And our next game is Icebreaker, a game that has 72 million visits but only around 30 to 50 people active every day. Also, if you're enjoying, please subscribe to help us reach 400,000 subs. These videos take so long to produce, it'll help out a ton. Anyways, they used to average thousands. What happened? Well, it all starts with the owner, Cracky, who joined Roblox all the way back in 2009. But didn't start developing until 2014. Already with their first games, you can tell they knew what they were doing. One of their first was Defenders of Roblox, a survival game where teams would fight against zombies, and it did pretty well, now having over 3 million visits, and they would continue this with their other games also performing well. However, they still didn't have a mega viral game just yet, but that would all change in 2017, when they launched Icebreaker, a Roblox game in which 2 teams compete to try and freeze the opposing team. Right away, it started to form an audience and perform well, but it wouldn't last for long. Quickly after release, the game was shut down and put under review by Roblox. Apparently it had some problems, but should be able to be brought back. Luckily, Cracky quickly fixed the issue, and the game did come back. However, the question now was, would this ruin the momentum of the game? Well, no. Since Cracky was able to quickly recover it, there wasn't much momentum loss. And over time, this Roblox game would only grow bigger and bigger, now sitting at over 70 million visits. But why did it die out? Well, as we can see, when the game launched, there were a ton of updates, but updates only got slower and slower. And with this, Cracky seemed to be struggling with balancing Roblox and school life. So with the lack of updates, players just kept leaving. On top of everything, it seemed like Icebreaker wasn't Cracky's main focus, and he had a bunch of projects he wanted to do. In an interview, he said, Icebreaker was made nearly a year and a half ago. I hope it doesn't represent the peak of my Roblox career. I'm going to keep working hard on improving my development ability and hopefully come with something even bigger in the future. And little did everyone know at the time, his next project would shock the entire Roblox community. In 2020, he launched a break-in story game, one of the biggest Roblox games ever, sitting at over 2.1 billion visits. That year, he also launched Parkour Tower, which sits at 73 million visits, and later he launched Multi-Coon, which sits at almost 400 million visits. Later, just under a year ago, he also launched Breakin' 2, which sits at 592 million visits. As you can see, the creator Cracky had a lot of plans for Roblox games, and when those took off, they obviously became his main focus, and Icebreaker kinda got forgotten. Breakin' was a huge risk for the creator though, for many reasons. In an article, Alec Yeft, aka Cracky, said that he was trying to focus time on this game while balancing school, ultimately deciding to work on this rather than getting a job, and also, like I showed, kind of ignoring his already viral game. But luckily, despite what he believed, it all worked out. So Icebreaker died, but it had to, in order for the creator to move on to bigger projects. A wild ending just like our next story. Because we're talking about Loomian Legacy, a Roblox game with 855 million visits, but they only average 500 to 1,000 players a day. Which isn't bad, but they used to average over 5,000 and even spike up to 20,000 for updates. What happened? Well, let's break it down because this story gets wild. It all starts with the owner, Lando64000, who's been on the platform since 2008. Lando made a ton of Roblox games and random projects, none of which blew up except one. Hide and Seek was launched in 2009 and it was his first taste of a viral game, now sitting at over 20 million visits. He would continue to work on random games and projects over the next few years, and 2015 would change his life forever. In 2015, he launched a famous game, Pokemon Brick Bronze, a Roblox recreation of Pokemon. They used all the assets from Pokemon and it was almost a one-for-one copy, just in Roblox, which caused the game to blow up. Pokemon is already so loved, so a very well-made recreation was destined for success, and his game was quickly deemed by many as one of the best Pokemon games ever created on Roblox. It was going viral on YouTube, the game was gaining a huge audience, they were constantly working on the game, all while it was growing bigger and bigger, being one of the biggest Roblox games at the time, and shaping up to be one of the biggest Roblox games ever made. Lando had done it. After being on the platform for years, he had a game go super viral. Him and the entire team are top of the world, but a few years later, everything came crumbling down. On April 18th, 2018, Pokemon Brick Bronze was fully shut down and deleted from Roblox. This wasn't a warning or a glitch, it was permanent. What happened? Well, since it was a replication of Pokemon and they were making a ton of money off it, Pokemon wasn't happy, so the copyright took down the game and they weren't allowed to bring it back. The game was deleted when it had 485 million visits. After years on the platform, Lando had a viral game, but now it was gone. However, he wasn't ready to give up just yet. Fans also weren't ready to give up, and many were still waiting to see what was next. Lando and his team spent the next year remaking Pokemon Brick Bronze, but this time, instead of copying Pokemon, they were going to use the same concept but make everything original, meaning they can't get in trouble again. On July 20th, 2019, over 1 year since the deletion of Pokemon Brick Bronze, they launched Loomian Legacy, their own Pokemon game with everything original. They uploaded the game over Pokemon Brick Bronze, so the 855 million visits are actually half from Pokemon Brick Bronze. However, Loomian Legacy still did gain over 400 million visits. At the start, the game was doing super well. They had a lot of hype from Pokemon Brick Bronze, and for the most part, people did enjoy the game, but over time, they just kept losing hype and players. What went wrong? Well, they've been struggling with major consistent updates, and the community started turning on them, because it takes so long with updates, and a lot of times even keep delaying updates for years. People got sick of waiting literal years for updates, and all the delays that most people just lost interest. It still does have a community, but over time, with all the delays and lack of major updates, people eventually moved on and lost interest. It's gotten so bad to the point where re-uploads of Brick Bronze are outperforming Loomian Legacy. Unfortunately, this dev wasn't able to get the same success that he had with Brick Bronze, and with everything, Loomian Legacy is slowly dying. A sad ending just like our next story. Because we're talking about Mining Simulator, a Roblox game with over 820 million visits, but they only average around 300 people active a day. They used to average thousands. This is a game made by Rumble Studios, who's made several viral games on the platform. When they launched Mining Simulator, it blew up, won several Bloxy awards, and was in general one of the biggest and most successful games they've ever made. But then, something crazy happened. They also launched Bubblegum Simulator, which blew up even more than Mining Simulator, now sitting at over 1.2 billion visits. Over the course of the next few years, both these games would just grow bigger and bigger. Rumble Studios was dominating Roblox, and they weren't done just yet. In 2022, they made a sequel to Mining Simulator, which also seemed to mark the end to Mining Simulator since they stopped updating it to focus on the new game. A decision that seemingly killed both of these games, because a lot of people didn't end up liking the second version since they felt it wasn't true to the concept of the game, and apparently even reused stuff from the other games. And now Mining Simulator started to die because there were no more updates, and Mining Simulator 2 was being updated, but people just didn't like it as much, so that too also started dying. In general, a lot of people say the entire studio fell off and everything just seems like a cash grab now. On top of everything now, they have a new game, Pet Catchers, which seems to be their main focus, and the whole mining series of games is dying out and will continue because it isn't their main priority anymore. The studio constantly launches viral games, tries to capitalize as much off the success, and then eventually moves on, which slowly causes the games to die out, leaving fans disappointed and losing interest. A similar situation to our next game, because we're talking about Assassin, a Roblox game with over 775 million visits, but only around 50 to 100 players active every day. They used to average way more, and the game's just been slowly dying over time. What went wrong? Well, this game was launched in 2016 and almost immediately blew up. As you can see in this old screenshot, just after a month, it was already at almost 300,000 visits. Assassin was kinda similar to the popular game MM2. There's different game modes like free-for-all and such, but the main thing is you and all the players are given a random target, and it's everyone's goal to eliminate their target. Over time though, the game just keeps losing more and more players. What happened? Well, it's kinda confusing, because there doesn't seem to be one major reason like the other cases, but here's what most people think. Firstly, a lack of changes. For the most part, many feel they played it too safe and never did anything that made the game feel new or fresh. They had events, but people think they got too repetitive. They had some good features that got removed. And overall, a lot of fans and people think the game just lacks creativity now, compared to people like MM2 who seemingly still try to innovate. And that could be the reason it outlasted all these games and is still popular to this day. A lot of people also claim the game has a big hacking problem now, which just ruins it even more. Some people who do try and play can't because of the huge exporting problem. Nowadays, the state of the game is in an even weirder spot because they are apparently working on the sequel to Assassin, Assassin X, but this game was announced in December of last year, all these months later with not much of an update. Overall, with the lack of content and competitors seemingly outdoing them, people got bored and moved on, and potentially moved on to competitors like MM2. Overall, a lot of Roblox games die for a number of reasons. No hate to the devs, just thought the stories were interesting to look at. And if you want more crazy Roblox stories, check it out here. I'll see you in the next one.